My name is Carter Shaw, and I used to think the worst thing about being married was listening to Elena complain about her boss every night over dinner. Turns out, I was spectacularly wrong about that. The worst thing about being married is discovering your wife has been screwing her college boyfriend for the past 6 months while telling you she's working late on important projects. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm a marine engineer, which means I fix boats for a living. Not glamorous, but it pays well enough to keep Elena in her designer clothes and fancy coffee. I'm 43, built like someone who actually works for a living, and I have calloused hands that Elena used to say she loved. Used to. The discovery happened on a Tuesday night in October. Elena had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she showered, and a message popped up from someone named B saying, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Same place as usual." Now, I'm not naturally suspicious, but when your wife has been working late 3 nights a week for the past 2 months, and suddenly she's getting mysterious messages about meeting someone at the same place as usual, well, even a guy who spends his days elbow deep in boat engines can put 2 and 2 together. I scrolled up through their conversation history. What I found made my stomach drop through the floor. Brad wasn't just some random guy. Bradley Kelton was Elena's college boyfriend from 15 years ago. The same Bradley Kelton she'd told me was ancient history when we got married. The same one she'd sworn meant nothing to her anymore. Their messages went back months. Intimate messages, explicit messages, messages about hotel rooms and lunch meetings and how much they'd missed this. Messages about me, too, about how I was getting suspicious and how they needed to be more careful. But the message that really got to me was from 3 weeks ago. Carter's so clueless, he actually believed I was working on the Morrison account until midnight. Poor guy has no idea what he's married to. Poor guy. That's what my wife called me to her lover. Poor, clueless Carter. I took screenshots of everything before closing the laptop. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. I was furious. White-hot, seeing red furious in a way I hadn't been since my Marine days. Elena came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair still damp, wearing the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. "How do I look?" she asked, spinning around like she was modeling for me. "Beautiful," I said, because even knowing what I knew, it was still true. "Where are you headed?" "Just dinner with Renee from work. Girl talk, you know how it is." She kissed my cheek, and I could smell her perfume, the expensive stuff she only wore for special occasions. "Have fun," I said. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "Don't wait up. We might go for drinks after." The door closed behind her, and I sat there in our kitchen, staring at her laptop and thinking about what kind of man I wanted to be. The kind who hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. The kind who confronted her and demanded explanations and apologies. Or the kind who made sure Elena and Bradley learned exactly what happens when you underestimate Carter Shaw. I opened her laptop again and started planning. I've always been good with my hands. It comes from years of fixing things that other people break. Boats, engines, marriages, they all require patience, the right tools, and a willingness to get dirty. By Wednesday morning, I had a plan. First, I called my old Marine buddy Mason Torres, who runs a private investigation business in town. Mason and I served 2 tours together in Afghanistan, and he's the kind of guy who asks how many instead of why when you tell him you need help burying bodies. Not that we were burying bodies, yet. "I need a favor," I told him over coffee at the diner downtown. "What kind of favor?" Mason asked. He's built like a brick wall and has the kind of face that makes people nervous in dark alleys, but he's got a good heart and he's loyal to his friends. I showed him the screenshots from Elena's laptop. His face got darker with each message. "Jesus, Carter, how long has this been going on?" 6 months, maybe more. They're meeting tonight at the Riverside Hotel. Mason nodded slowly. What do you want to do about it? I want to make them famous. That afternoon, I designed a flyer. Nothing fancy, just a simple layout with a photo I'd found on Elena's social media. Her and Bradley at some tech conference last month, standing closer together than colleagues should. Under the photo, I wrote, "Guess who's cheating tonight? Elena Shaw and Bradley Kelton will be at the Riverside Hotel bar, 8 p.m. Come say hi." I printed 500 copies at the Kinko's across town, paying cash. Then Mason and I spent the rest of the afternoon distributing them. We hit every car in the Riverside Hotel parking lot, every business within a 3-block radius, and every apartment building in Bradley's neighborhood. We taped them to telephone poles, stuck them under windshield wipers, and left stacks in coffee shops and restaurants. The piece de resistance was the 50 copies I had delivered to Elena's office building, strategically placed in the lobby, the elevators, and the break rooms. By 7 p.m., half the town knew that Elena Shaw was cheating on her husband with Bradley Kelton, and they knew exactly where to find them. I went home, cracked open a beer, and waited for my phone to ring. It rang at 9:47 p.m. "Carter?" Elena's voice was shaking. "Carter, what did you do?" "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "People are staring at us. There are people here with cameras. Someone just came up to our table and asked if we were the cheaters from the flyer." "That sounds awful," I said, taking another sip of my beer. "What flyer?" "Don't play dumb with me. I know this was you." "Elena, I'm sitting at home watching TV. I have no idea what you're talking about." There was a long pause. I could hear voices in the background and someone laughing. "I'm coming home," she said. "Drive safe," I told her. "And, Elena, check the mailbox when you get here." I hung up and walked outside to put one more flyer in our mailbox, along with a printout of all the screenshots I'd taken from her laptop. Elena pulled into our driveway at 10:23 p.m. I watched through the window as she checked the mailbox, saw her shoulders slump when she found what I'd left for her. She came inside carrying the papers, her face pale and her hands shaking. "We need to talk," she said. "Yes," I agreed. "We do." Elena sat down at our kitchen table, still wearing that black dress, still smelling like expensive perfume and betrayal. She spread the screenshots out in front of her like evidence in a trial, which I guess they were. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Since yesterday. Your laptop was open." She nodded, not even trying to deny it. "What do you want?" "I want to know why." Elena looked down at her hands. "It just happened, Carter. We ran into each other at a conference 6 months ago, and we started talking, and you decided to start screwing him. It wasn't like that. What was it like, Elena? Explain it to me." She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Do you remember what you used to be like when we first met? You were ambitious. You had plans. You were going to start your own business, maybe get into marine consulting. You talked about traveling, about seeing the world." "I remember." "What happened to that guy, Carter? When did you become someone who's satisfied fixing other people's boats for the rest of his life?" The question hit me like a slap. I became someone who was happy with what we had. I thought that's what marriage was supposed to be. "I wasn't happy," she said. "I haven't been happy for years." "So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it." "I tried to talk to you. Every time I brought up the idea of you doing something different, something bigger, you'd change the subject or make some joke about being a simple boat mechanic." "Because I like my job, Elena. I'm good at it." "You're good at a lot of things. You could be doing so much more." I stared at her across the table, this woman I'd been married to for 8 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. "So you found someone who was doing more." "Brad understands ambition. He's built 3 successful companies. He's going places. And I'm not. Not anymore, no." The honesty of it was like a knife between the ribs. Elena had been cheating on me because she thought I wasn't good enough for her anymore. because I'd chosen contentment over ambition, stability over risk. What happens now? I asked. I don't know. I need time to think. About what? About whether you want to keep screwing Bradley, or whether you want to try to save our marriage? About whether there's anything left to save. I gathered up the screenshots and put them in a neat pile. Well, while you're thinking, you might want to consider something. What's that? Bradley's been using you. Elena frowned. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed her the research I'd done that afternoon. Your boyfriend has a pattern, Elena. 3 other affairs with married women in the past 5 years. All of them worked for companies he was trying to acquire or get contracts with. All of them ended up providing him with insider information, whether they meant to or not. Her face went white. That's not... Brad wouldn't what? Use Pillow Talk to get information about Morrison Industries? The same Morrison Industries that just happens to be bidding on the same government contract as Bradley's company? Elena stared at the phone screen, reading the news articles I'd found about Bradley's business practices, the rumors about his methods, the pattern of relationships that always seemed to coincide with business opportunities. You're lying, she whispered, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Am I? When's the last time Brad asked you about work, Elena? About specific projects, specific clients, specific bids? She didn't answer, but she didn't have to. I could see the realization dawning on her face. He loves me, she said, but she didn't sound convinced. Maybe he does, or maybe you're just another source of information to him, another married woman who thinks she's special. Elena stood up abruptly, knocking her chair backward. I need air. I need to think. You do that, I said. But Elena, don't go running to Bradley tonight, because after today's little flyer campaign, I don't think he's going to be very happy to see you. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. This isn't over, Carter. No, I agreed. It's not. After she left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, thinking about what she'd said. About ambition and contentment and the man I used to be. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had settled. Maybe I had chosen the easy path instead of the challenging one. But if Elena thought that made me weak, she was about to learn how wrong she was. The next morning, I drove to Elena's office building downtown. Morrison Industries occupied 3 floors of a gleaming glass tower, the kind of place where everyone wears expensive suits and drinks coffee that costs more than most people spend on lunch. I'd never felt comfortable in places like this, but today I had a purpose. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and a practiced smile, looked up as I approached her desk. Can I help you? I'm here to see Elena Shaw. I'm her husband. Oh. Her smile became more genuine. Mrs. Shaw talks about you all the time. Let me call up to her office. While she made the call, I looked around the lobby. It was all marble and glass and modern art that probably cost more than my truck. Elena fit in here in a way I never would. I'm sorry, Mr. Shaw, but Mrs. Shaw is in meetings all morning. Can I schedule you an appointment for later today? That's fine. Actually, while I'm here, could you tell me where I might find Bradley Kelton? I believe he's been working with Elena on some projects. The receptionist's smile flickered slightly. Mr. Kelton doesn't work here, sir. He's with Kelton Dynamics. They're competitors. Competitors? Yes, sir. They've been bidding against us on several major contracts recently. I nodded thoughtfully. I see. Well, thank you for your help. I was halfway to the elevator when the receptionist called after me. Mr. Shaw, I probably shouldn't say this, but there were some flyers going around yesterday with Mrs. Shaw's picture on them. Some of the staff were talking about it. I turned back to her. What kind of flyers? She looked uncomfortable. Maybe you should talk to Mrs. Shaw about it. I'd rather hear it from you. The receptionist glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned forward and lowered her voice. They said she was having an affair with Bradley Kelton. There were photos and everything. Security collected all the flyers they could find, but people had already seen them. I see. And what do you think about that? I think it's terrible that someone would spread rumors like that about such a nice woman. I smiled. You're right. It is terrible. Thank you for telling me. I left the building and sat in my truck for a few minutes, thinking. Then I called Mason. How did it go last night? I asked when he answered. Better than expected. I counted at least 30 people who showed up at the hotel just to get a look at them. Someone was taking video. Pretty sure it's already on social media. Good. I need another favor. Name it. I need you to do some digging on Bradley Kelton's business practices. Specifically, I want to know about his relationships with women who work for companies he's trying to acquire. Already on it, Mason said. I made some calls this morning. This guy's got a reputation, Carter. He's smooth, he's smart, and he's ruthless. 3 women in the past 5 years, just like you said. All of them ended up losing their jobs when their affairs came to light. Their jobs? Companies don't like employees who leak sensitive information to competitors, even if they don't realize they're doing it. I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. How long before Elena figures this out? Probably already has, if she's as smart as you say she is. Question is, what's she going to do about it? We'll find out soon enough. I hung up and drove home. Elena's car was in the driveway, which surprised me. She was usually at work by 8 a.m. I found her in the kitchen, still in her pajamas, staring at her laptop screen with red-rimmed eyes. You were right, she said, without looking up. About what? About Brad. About everything. She turned the laptop around so I could see the screen. It was a news article about Kelton Dynamics winning a major government contract, dated just 3 hours ago. The Morrison contract? I asked. She nodded. The one we'd been working on for 6 months. The one I told him about. The one I gave him inside information about without even realizing it. I sat down across from her. I'm sorry, Elena. Are you? Because you don't look sorry. You look satisfied. She wasn't wrong. I was satisfied. But I was also genuinely sorry that she was hurting. I'm sorry you're in pain, I said. I'm not sorry that you're finally seeing Bradley for what he is. What he is, or what you wanted me to see him as? What do you mean? Elena closed the laptop and looked at me directly for the first time since I'd walked in. Those flyers yesterday, the timing was perfect, wasn't it? Right when Brad was about to close the deal. Right when the information I'd given him was about to pay off for his company. I didn't say anything. You knew, didn't you? You knew what he was doing before you even confronted me. I suspected. You let me think I was in love with him. You let me think he cared about me. You could have told me what he was really after, but instead, you decided to humiliate both of us in public. Would you have believed me if I just told you? Elena was quiet for a long moment. Probably not, she admitted. Then I did what I had to do. To save our marriage? I looked at my wife, sitting there in her expensive pajamas in our expensive kitchen, and realized that I didn't know the answer to that question anymore. To save myself, I said finally. 3 days later, Elena moved out. She took her clothes, her laptop, and her wounded pride, and went to stay with her sister across town. She left behind the house we'd bought together, the life we'd built together, and a note on the kitchen table that said simply, I need time. I gave her time. 2 weeks of it. 2 weeks during which I went to work every day, fixed other people's boats, and came home to an empty house that felt more peaceful than it had in months. But I wasn't idle during those 2 weeks. Mason had continued his investigation into Bradley Kelton, and what he'd found was a pattern of behavior that went beyond simple adultery. Bradley wasn't just a cheater. He was a predator who targeted married women specifically because they were vulnerable and had access to information he could use. The 3 women before Elena had all lost their jobs when their affairs came to light. One had been blacklisted from her industry entirely. Another had suffered a nervous breakdown and spent 6 months in therapy. Bradley destroyed lives as a business strategy, and he was good at it. But he'd made one mistake this time. He'd chosen to target the wife of a man who'd spent 20 years in the Marines and another 10 years fixing things that other people had broken. On a Friday evening, I drove to Bradley's apartment building, a sleek glass tower downtown that screamed money and success. The kind of place Elena probably dreamed of living in. I'd done my homework. I knew Bradley drove a red BMW, parked in space 247 in the underground garage. I knew he worked out at the gym on the 20th floor every evening at 6 p.m. I knew his routines, his habits, his weaknesses. I waited in the garage until he came down from his workout, gym bag slung over his shoulder, checking his phone as he walked. "Bradley Kelton?" I called out. He looked up, and I saw recognition flash across his face. He'd probably seen my photo on Elena's social media. "Carter Shaw," he said, straightening up. "I was wondering when you'd show up." "Were you?" "Elena said you were the type to want a face-to-face conversation." I walked closer, noting how he tensed up as I approached. "What else did Elena tell you about me?" "That you're a simple man with simple needs, that you were holding her back." The words stung, but I didn't let it show. "She told you I was in the Marines." "She mentioned it." "Did she tell you what I did in the Marines?" Bradley's confidence wavered slightly. "Something with engineering. Combat engineering. Do you know what that means, Bradley?" He didn't answer. "It means I specialized in destroying things. Bridges, buildings, enemy positions. I was very good at it." "Are you threatening me?" I smiled. "I'm just sharing information. The way you shared information about Elena's company with your business partners." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. The Morrison contract. The inside information Elena gave you during Pillow Talk. The contract your company won 3 days ago." Bradley's face hardened. "Elena came to me, Carter. I didn't pursue her. She was unhappy in her marriage, and she found someone who appreciated her. You found someone you could use." "I found someone who deserved better than a small-town boat mechanic with no ambition." The insult was deliberate, designed to make me lose my temper. It almost worked. "You're right," I said. "Elena does deserve better. She deserves better than a predator who targets married women for industrial espionage." "You can't prove that." "I don't have to prove it. I just have to make sure everyone knows about it." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It was a website Mason had helped me create, documenting Bradley's pattern of affairs and their connection to his business deals. Photos, timelines, public records, testimonials from his previous victims. "This goes live in 24 hours, I said. Unless what? Unless you disappear. Leave town. Find a new city to hunt in." Bradley laughed, but it sounded forced. "You think you can blackmail me? I'll sue you for defamation." "With what?" "Everything on that website is true. I've got documentation for all of it." "Elena will never forgive you for this." "Elena's not your concern anymore." Bradley stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height and his expensive suit. "You have no idea who you're messing with, Carter. I have lawyers. I have connections. I can make your life very difficult." "You already did that when you decided to screw my wife. She came to me willingly. Because you manipulated her. Because you saw a woman who was dissatisfied with her marriage, and you exploited that dissatisfaction for your own gain." "I gave her what she needed." "You gave her what you needed. Access to her company's information." Bradley's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw the cold calculation underneath. "Prove it." "I don't have to prove it to a jury, Bradley. I just have to prove it to the court of public opinion." I put my phone away and stepped back. 24 hours, find a new city or find a new career, because after tomorrow, everyone's going to know exactly what kind of man you are. I turned to walk away, but Bradley grabbed my arm. "You think you've won something here? Elena's never coming back to you. Even if I disappear tomorrow, she's not going to forgive you for humiliating her." I looked down at his hand on my arm. then back up at his face. "Let go of me, Bradley." He held on for another second, trying to assert dominance, then released my arm when he saw something in my eyes that made him reconsider. "You're right," I said. "Elena probably won't forgive me, but she'll never trust you again either. And that's enough." I walked away, leaving Bradley standing alone in his expensive parking garage, probably wondering how a simple boat mechanic had just destroyed his carefully constructed life. The website went live the next morning. By noon, Bradley's phone was ringing with calls from reporters, former business partners, and very angry lawyers representing his previous victims. By evening, he was gone. Elena came home on Sunday morning. I was in the garage, working on the engine of a fishing boat, when I heard her car in the driveway. She found me elbow-deep in machinery, which seemed appropriate somehow. "We need to talk," she said. I wiped my hands on a rag and turned to face her. She looked tired, older somehow, like the past 3 weeks had aged her years. "I saw the website," she said. "I figured you would. Was any of it true?" "All of it." Elena sat down on my workbench, careful not to disturb the tools I had laid out. "The other women, did you talk to them?" Mason did. They were all eager to share their stories once they knew someone was finally listening. "He destroyed their lives. He tried to destroy yours too." Elena was quiet for a long time, staring at the concrete floor of the garage. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I've been so stupid." "You were lonely. He took advantage of that." "I was selfish. I convinced myself that I deserved more than what we had, and I used that as an excuse to betray you." I leaned against the workbench next to her. "Did you? Deserve more, I mean?" She looked at me in surprise. "What do you mean?" "You said I wasn't ambitious anymore, that I'd settled for less than I could be. Were you right?" Elena considered the question carefully. "I don't know. Maybe. But that wasn't my decision to make for you. What if I wanted to make a change? What if I wanted to try something bigger?" "Like what?" I gestured around the garage. "I've been thinking about what you said, about starting my own business, maybe doing marine consulting like I used to talk about." "You'd do that?" "I might. If I had a partner I could trust." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Carter, I don't know if I can earn that trust back. We'd have to start over, both of us. Is that what you want? To start over?" I looked at my wife, sitting in my garage in her expensive clothes, crying over the mess she'd made of our life, and I realized that despite everything, I still loved her. "I want to try," I said. Elena nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "What happened to Brad?" "He left town. I don't think he'll be back." "Good." She paused. "I'm sorry, Carter. For all of it. For not talking to you about how I was feeling. For the affair. For calling you a poor, clueless man." "You weren't wrong about the clueless part." "Yes, I was. You knew exactly what was happening, and you handled it better than I had any right to expect." I thought about that. I don't know if better is the right word. I was pretty ruthless. You protected yourself. You protected me, even though I didn't deserve it. And you made sure that Brad couldn't do to anyone else what he did to me. So what happens now? Elena stood up and walked over to where I was working on the boat engine. "Now I help you finish fixing this engine, and then we go inside and figure out how to fix us." I handed her a wrench. "It's going to be messy work." "I don't mind getting my hands dirty," she said. We worked together in comfortable silence for the next hour, fixing something that someone else had broken, making it whole again. It felt like a beginning. 3 months later, Shaw Marine Consulting opened for business in a small office downtown. Elena had quit her job at Morrison Industries and was handling the business side of our new venture. We were taking things slowly, both personally and professionally, but we were taking them together. Bradley Kelton, never returned to town. The last I heard, he was facing multiple lawsuits in California, and his business had collapsed under the weight of the scandal. I felt no sympathy for him. Some people might say that what I did was excessive, that I should have just confronted Elena directly, filed for divorce, and moved on with my life. But those people have never had their marriage destroyed by a predator who made a career out of exploiting vulnerable women. Bradley Kelton thought he could use my wife and discard her without consequences. He thought he was dealing with a simple boat mechanic who wouldn't fight back. He was wrong about both things. Elena was stronger than he gave her credit for, and I was more dangerous than he imagined. In the end, that's what saved our marriage and destroyed his life. Sometimes the underdog wins, not because he's lucky, but because he's underestimated. And sometimes, when you try to destroy someone's life, you discover that they're very good at returning the favor.